what's up, guys? Hi there. Thank you for tuning in to Pleasant Podcast. Today, I have a very, very special guest. His name is Aidan. He's in the band Subtle Q from Lake County, Ohio. What is up, Aidan?
Hey, Avery. Thanks for having me.
What's going on, man? How was your day?
Not too bad. Just worked and hoping to get home and practice the songs for the show coming up on October 20th.
Very cool. Very cool. Who's in the band, including yourself, of course?
Right now, it's just me and John Chapman on the drums. We're hoping to work in bassist before October 20th. We've got a couple candidates. We were playing with Dan Phillips, my buddy, but he unfortunately didn't have the time to continue to pursue this with us.
How'd you guys meet?
I met John because we were neighbors, and he and his roommates had a house party one night. It was pretty loud. It was actually the evening that we met, if I remember right.
I do recall such a event taking place. Certain house party got a little rowdy, but yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
so
yeah.
It was the kind of party that I could just wander over to and be received well. You know, they were enjoying life that night. So, yeah, just wandered over, introduced myself, and the rest is history, I guess.
Right on, dude. How did you guys come up with the name Subtle Q?
We wanted something that wasn't a dictionary word, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely wanted some sort of number or letter in there. And then John had a phrase that he was using all the time, like, "Oh, you got to look out for the subtle cues, man." I mean, he meant it, of course, C-U-E. And so eventually I just said, what if we just made that a capital Q and left the meaning up for grabs? You know,
There you
it's
go.
ambiguous.
All right. What venues have you guys played so far?
We have played one show at the Lux Hookah Lounge over there in Willoughby.
All right.
Yeah.
Did anybody else play with you guys, or was
No.
that like just strictly you dudes playing?
Yep.
All
Just
right.
us.
How many people do you think came out to that?
We had about 35 to 40 people, I want to say there. A lot of
Damn.
foot traffic, or I should say just regulars who go to the hookah bar
Yeah,
who
yeah.
ended up seeing us and got a good response. The sound was pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Damn. Very cool. Do you guys well, let's see here. Do you guys have any content out currently? Like any albums, anything in the works?
We don't have any content out currently, but we are working on our first album, which is as of yet untitled, but we have a couple titles in mind, one of which is Immaterial.
Why immaterial?
That's maybe the way I feel about my music sometimes, that it's immaterial.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. What is your perspective on, I suppose, the music business in the sense of material possessions, I suppose? So if you were to get signed and someone was selling your CDs, do you think the response of buying a CD would be better or worse than a cassette tape, or a CD would be better or worse than than like a vinyl, like an LP? A lot of these bands now, for whatever reasons, are putting out these long-winded one songs that go on like one vinyl and then charging people like $25. Like, what is your perspective of that?
I think it can all be worthwhile, and depending on the person, I think, forking out the money for it, right? I have enjoyed listening to vinyl. I have enjoyed listening to CDs. I still use CDs in my car just because it's a 2005 Pontiac. I'm too lazy to put in an aux port, and I also don't really want to use my old phone because the battery would drain in just one trip. So I still use CDs in my car, and they're worthwhile to me that way. So if a band's hawking a CD for $5, I might buy it, just to listen to in my car and support the band. Vinyl is a little bit more of an expensive problem hobby, I found. I do love listening to vinyl, but it's expensive.
It is super expensive. Like, between the cartridge, and you have to find an amp that matches your speakers, and if you get the vinyl, if you look at the vinyl the wrong way, it has a scratch in it,
Right.
So I totally feel that. Do you guys plan on touring at all? And if so, are you guys going to sell vinyl, CDs, cassette tapes, T-shirts? How are you guys going to approach the life of touring across this great nation?
We're definitely hoping to tour and planning to tour also. I would love to tour the country to start with, or the Midwest before that.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely have CDs and vinyls. Not so sure about cassettes, but then again, the Village Bicycle local band convinced me to buy a cassette tape at their show.
There you
So
go.
it can be done. Maybe we should print some up. I guess some people still have cassette decks, so
If there's a will,
why not?
If there's a will, there is definitely a way, for sure. Speaking of wills and ways, do you think it is a good outlook on independent music as a whole right now, or do you think independent music's kind of dying out? Do you think there's too much corporate intervention? Is the underground alive at all? And I'm talking like any genre right now, not just rock or alternative rock. Like,
Right.
Is independently produced music even worth diving into if you are a starving artist or a new musician?
I definitely think it's worth diving into if you love music, because it's you have more tools at your fingertips nowadays than you ever did before. I mean, you can really build a studio in your home on a working class, income.
Right.
Today, right now, and that wasn't the case 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth getting into. There's definitely been a little bit of a struggle because the internet broke down all the sort of local barriers, and local barriers are sort of what creates individual scenes and local flavors and innovation, even, because I think innovation usually happens at the small local level.
Right. Because then different sections or groups of people are just straight copying trends that are happening, and then there's a tainted originality thing that's no longer good or there, I guess.
Yeah. So I think we, as the current crop of creative people, have to figure out how to maybe inject some vitality into independent music if we care about it. I definitely do. I mean,
how would one do such a thing?
Go see independent artists, pay to see their shows. If you like them, buy their CDs or whatever you happen to listen to. Buy their shirts. Make music if that's what you're into. Put on shows if you happen to have that inclination or talent. These are all things we can do. I definitely respect what you've done, what I've seen you do over the years. A hell of a lot.
Thank you.
I think stuff like that, just whatever you can do, whatever makes sense.
I totally feel that. I think a lot of people, or some newcomers, not even newcomers, just people that are sort of naive to how the whole thing works, such as our parents, don't quite understand that for a creative scene to exist, typically it's going to be in a lower income area. So, co-producer over here, my dude Jonas, if you guys can see him on the GoPro, plays bass in my band Hide the Escapees. We were just talking about this. If you were to move away to pursue music, is that even worth it? Or will you find the same trials and tribulations as you would at home? And I don't just mean Cleveland versus the world. I mean, like, if there's a dude living in Portland and wants to move to LA, guy in New York for some reason wants to move to Cleveland, is it truly the problem of being a musician, or sort of a different sociological issue that's coming up, such as musicians being broke? Do you think musicians, but the trend of musicians not having money equates to why so many musicians want to get signed? I know that kind of sounds like a loaded question, but I want to have your opinion on that.
It definitely
because the first thing you tell your parents, like, I want to be in a rock band. Me and my friends, we are in a rock band. You're not going to make money doing it,
right?
And you're going to be like, well, I don't want to make money doing it. And then they say, get out of my house. You know what I mean? And then there's the great divide. You know what I mean? They call you a communist and all these things. but yeah, what is your viewpoint on that?
It's a good question, and it's a complicated issue, right? I think that creative people tend to not want to think about how to use money, and that's at least part of the reason why musicians aren't tend to be broke, right? Is because
I see that.
They don't want to think about something as materialistic as money. They want to think about their art or something,
or living in the moment,
right?
Yeah.
And it is a tool that you have to learn how to use. It's a skill, even if it doesn't matter where you're working. You do have to learn how to use money effectively. I think unfortunately, desperation leads you to sometimes make poor choices or sacrifice, your ideals or your freedom. I've definitely done it. I think everyone has at one point or another, right? Has maybe just turned a blind eye to something that was wrong because you need a buck. Right. So that definitely leads to people, quote unquote, selling out, and they end up getting screwed in the process. That's a very common story. Bands who get signed usually don't end up reaping the benefits that you would think you would reap from being a signed member of a big corporation.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
You know,
I totally agree with you, dude. I think that desperation pushes us to not the appropriate occupation. You know what I mean? And that could just rail the entire thing. Being blinded, literally blinded by not stardom, but naivety, if that's a word. By the, oh yeah, man, we're just gonna tour around the world forever. Really, forever. Okay. And then through talking to a lot of people throughout my travels, like, I've met people that don't want anything to do with live music. Well, why is that? Because my parents are touring musicians, and I've never met my dad. You know what I mean? Or someone's like, my mom was always out, or my mom met all these dudes while she was performing, or vice versa. Then you kind of see the darker side, the real human side, right, of music. It's the same as like being a long haul trucker. You're on the road for months at a time. And you don't get to really socially interact with your loved ones, Then just like you said, you have to almost have this moral grounding. It's like, okay, you're in a different city. You could do certain things, but should you? Just because you can does not always mean that you should,
Right.
And then, of course, underneath the umbrella of free money or money that the corporation's giving you or like fronting to you, I can totally see how people's lives are getting totally derailed by that.
Oh, sure. And then it's a cycle that feeds off itself, right? Because you're basically, once you get your advance, you're in debt to this big corporation that has lawyers to come after you for it, right? So you have to always be on tour. You can't choose when to take a break because they're spending money on you, and somehow they're going to recoup that. They're not giving it away for free.
Exactly. It's very, very gnarly.
Yeah.
Very gnarly indeed.
The DIY ethic is practical as well as idealistic. It's not. It's very practical because nowadays, especially with the internet, you can do a lot of the work that they used to do for you. You can find a record pressing plant. You can advertise yourself on social media.
Right.
You don't really need them.
And unless you're talking to the right person, you may not be able to play like a multi-thousand person venue. You know what I mean? But you can get pretty damn close. Not being signed,
Right.
It's not always lowest common denominator in your friend's basement. It's like, yeah, Mom, I know we went to Oakland last Friday. I know I did not tell you that we went to Oakland last Friday. Jonas was safe. We skated for a long time. Everybody had a good time. Did you make any money off of it? Not necessarily. But we did sell a few T-shirts. It's okay. I think a lot of, if there's any sort of words, I guess, to sort of help out newer bands coming up, it's use your creativity to become very good at business, because all music business is business. It's the business of marketing. You are marketing a product, whether it's an idea, hello punk music, or an accessory, like any I've seen a lot of independent bands float their way through existence by playing on commercials, Like, everybody loved the Black Keys once they saw the Black Keys were in a car commercial, In some circles, that could be selling out. In other circles, holy crap, dude, you're in a car commercial. You want to go fishing on Friday? All right, yeah, cool. Because you can do that,
Right.
If you have the wherewithal to sit there and figure out how to read licensing laws, and understand the business, just like you said, you can totally circumvent and navigate your way through the DIY scene. Now, it might not be as flashy, like we said, a lot of warehouses and stuff, but it's like, at that point, why are you even doing it? If you're truly doing it to try to get to this place, the universe might really throw you into that place, and you might not be able to come out, like you said.
Right.
It's very interesting with that. Sort of dwelling back to a few other things here. Do you think street teams would help the promotional process, or do you think promotion for your band should strictly be done online?
I definitely think they can be useful. I can't remember the last time I was convinced to go to a show by a member of a street team. So there is that, but maybe I'm not the target.
You want me to turn that one down?
No, it's fine. It's just with like street teams and stuff, we don't have a big enough local scene or place to do that, so there's no reason for it to happen here. Like we have downtown Willoughby, and that's it.
I mean, in general.
That's kind of a good point.
Well, yeah, but we haven't experienced that because we don't live in any like urban situations.
Yeah, Cleveland is so sprawled out.
Do you think, or I guess a question for both of you guys, why is the music scene, not only in Cleveland, but in most places, so damn segregated? You know? No metal people will talk to rap. No rap will talk to indie people. Of course, nobody wants to talk to the country people, you know? Or is that just how it is and how it's gonna be?
It's a really
What do
good
you guys
question. I definitely can't say why for sure, but I can say that it definitely lines up with something else I've noticed about Cleveland, which is that it feels like stepping into a time machine, like from 10 years ago or something, or going back 10 years or 15 years maybe. Not always in a bad way, in some good ways and some bad ways, right?
How so? Can you elaborate?
People seem to be a little less interested in technology to me. Like other parts of the country I've been to, you definitely have the people being sucked into their phone symptom more prevalent. Little things like that. More pickup trucks than you see in, say, like a New York nowadays.
Yep. Yeah. Very real. Very real. I think the thing too is like, depending on where you are, people would much rather sugarcoat things to disguise the fact that they are a manual laborer. You know, they don't want the crowd to know that, you know, their gear was bought from laying bricks, you know, so they're just going to wear face paint. You know what I mean? Like, putting on this persona is what we were speaking on a few days ago. What's up? Oh, the camera stopped recording.
Oh snap!
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that button. Who that boy? Who him is? All right, cool. But yeah, I feel like a lot of, once again, a lot of bands. Well, actually, this might go in a different direction. Do you think a lot of the best bands come from working class families?
Yes, it seems to be that way. And it seems to be
Isn't that
most of the
interesting?
good music scenes happen in places that are economically disadvantaged, we'll say.
Why do you think that is? And if you can step a little closer to the microphone.
Sure. Oh, sure thing. Yeah, I think it leads to some sort of dissatisfaction and yearning for more. And, creating music is one of those things that's free, but it requires a lot of desire and hunger. I think maybe hunger is probably the operative word.
I definitely relate to that. And I think also when you're in those lower income situations, almost the physical activity itself, you're used to physically doing stuff. So it's like, okay, we're going to have a show in so-and-so's barn, garage, basement. Put your shit in my shitty pickup truck, and we're going to go get drunk in his basement. Let's go. And there's no question about it. You will probably play a very good show in someone's basement. You know, there you go. But that's an interesting paradox, because now, like, you'd have kids from these upper middle class, higher class families that want to go to house parties. Of course, they can't find a house party, so they try to, like, hang out with, you know, the rougher kids at the high school. You know, it's a very interesting social web there. It's weird how that works. How do both of you think rap music is affecting suburban life?
Oof.
Got him.
Man, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
It's definitely leading to, interestingly, more exposure to different ideas in the suburbs, and also maybe a glorification of things that aren't necessarily good or enjoyable. Like, when you're suburban, you should really be grateful for that and not glorifying, like, living in destitution or whatever, which is where a lot of great rap comes from, of course.
Like we just said
Right.
before, it's like, this is someone's actual life, and they just want to reflect on that. That is very paradoxical to go to Target and you hear some very, very ignorant stuff coming out of a pickup truck, and this is the most pasty individual you've ever seen in your life. It's pretty weird, man. Where are you from? I'm from Surfside. Did you hear what you just said? I'm from a place called Surfside, dude. We're not in fucking Cali, all right? Ridiculous. What do you have to say?
Okay, so like a lot of rappers also glorify like their own experiences to sell records and like sell it to people in suburban, like
It's true.
people who glorify it. So it's like they're doing it to themselves, but also it affects the suburban people a lot because they glorify it too, and then it just becomes a self-perpetuating thing to sell records, and then
So in other words, let's get ignorant and get rich because it works.
It works. It sells.
Yeah. That is weird. What's what do you idea time brainstorm session? What do you guys think the people that play instruments should do to somewhat become more relevant? Not even in the bigger picture, but I mean just more relevant, because we all know, like, you go to a pawn shop, guitars are hanging up, you know. And it wasn't until technology updated that we saw more rappers, you know. This isn't a war on rap. I'm just saying it might take a little more time and skill in certain areas to learn an instrument versus certain people will literally just kind of make noises into a microphone. And then now I guess I'm kind of answering the question that we already had earlier. Now we have almost like, I guess, a jealousy effect, because if you only have one venue in an area and these working class kids have instruments that they finally bought in cars that they own, are now unable to play at a venue because there's a rap show going on, you know. It's like, let's think about how long it takes to make a rap song. Shorter time to make a rap song than it does to record this podcast and edit it. You can have a full mix.
Especially if it's a bad one, and if you don't care about what sounds you're making. Right?
Exactly. So what do you guys think musicians, people that play instruments, should do to sort of, you know, make it kind of cool again? If there is anything we can do. Can we do anything? I don't know. What's up? What do you
Yes and no. I think network, you know, find people who can help you make spaces. If there aren't spaces, you know, make them. I mean, that's obviously not always possible, but try at least, you know, get out there and find the kid with a basement whose mom doesn't care if, you know, he does shows.
Right.
Whatever. Also find new ways to play the instruments. Make it more relevant. There's got to be more ideas out there. I know I haven't found really any ideas that I think are amazingly original, but I think there's got to be some, right? Someone's going to stumble across some new way of playing the guitar.
There you go.
So go do that.
Yeah.
If you can.
Any ideas, Jonas? No, we're sitting dead in the water on that. So if you guys have any ideas on how to make musicians any more relevant besides making music in the first place, just saying, totally.
that is the trick.
Shoot us an email at pleasantvalleymedia@gmail.com. USA. Yeah, that's weird. I'm trying to not. In case you guys didn't already know, we also recorded this podcast once before, had some small technical difficulties. So I'm trying to bring up new questions and bring up old questions, and now I'm questioning a lot of things.
I waxed poetic about the meaning of life. It all came to me in the moment, and it was like lightning in a bottle.
It's 42. That's all I can say. It's 42, man. It's 42. Lake County. All right, here we go. What is Lake County? I'm asking both of you guys. Unsubjected, slanted view, because I answered it in the last one, right? So what is Lake County? Why should people care about this place? Or why should they not care about this place? Or for our sake, why should they why should they care about this place?
I think it's a lot of potential, most of which is untapped. Mm-hmm. You know, you go over to Lakewood, there's lots of places to see shows. You know, a lot of togetherness. There's a lot of cool parks and everything. And then Lake County seems to be a place that could be like that and isn't.
Why isn't it? Why don't you think it is?
That's a good question. I will say I don't know the whole answer, but I can say definitely that it seems to be hard to get licenses to open up venues in certain places like East Lake.
I see. I'm assuming. You mean liquor licenses?
Liquor license
I see.
being one of them. Yeah.
I see. And for you, J-Dog?
I mean, I see the untapped potential aspect of it. A part of it is like there's no one who wants to like take that plunge to like get the venue and do the things to mobilize the whole scene, which is what we're trying to do, obviously. But we don't have any like trailblazers like that really to do that. And like Lakewood had like a precedent with like venues and stuff like for years, and we're just like starting out. So like we're kind of just doing it ourselves now, which is a very like DIY thing, which we kind of have to because there's no one else to like do it with us or for us. So
Foo-boo.
like, what?
Foo-boo.
Yeah, foo-boo.
For us, by us.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Corny as hell.
Very, but it's fine.
Yeah. I think the crux of the situation at hand is money. No smart person that already has money is going to sink their money into something that, quite frankly, up front does not immediately make money.
Takes a little bit of crazy, just the right amount, just enough to make you interesting or a little idealistic.
That's why us working class people are providing for it.
Right.